Welcome everyone. It is 4 after the hour. Sounds like a great time to get started. This is the How to Advertise Your Rentals Like a Pro webinar. Today we're talking about everything about advertising rentals, from the importance of a great rental listing to the absolute best ways to promote it. We're also going to take a look at cozy listings and the absolute best ways to help you create a beautiful website for your rental ad and for free to fill your vacancies fast. By the end of the webinar, though, you'll know all the top tips for advertise your rental through Cozy or even some of the other sites you're using. So here's the game plan. We're going to do some intros and then a short overview of Cozy's features. Then we're going to jump into our discussion around listings. We're also going to do some more look at some of Lucas's topics, who's here today. But by the end of the webinar here, you're going to have all the top tips for how to create a rental like a pro through Cozy and know exactly what you're doing here. I'm super excited because Lucas Hall is here with us. He's going to spend some time chatting with us about his experiences with rental listings, advertising, and really what's worked best for him. After that, we're going to walk through how to create a listing in Cozy and what that looks like. Then we're going to finish up all with some live Q&A, which is sometimes my favorite part for the webinars. We are also going to be recording this, so just as a heads up, you're going to get a link to view the recording shortly after the webinar concludes, so you have that for your reference. Let's do some intros though. I'm Jordan, I'm one of your hosts, and I'm also the Customer Success Manager here at Cozy. My role is, whether you're checking out Cozy to see if we're the right fit or just started using Cozy, I'm here to make sure you have all the information and education you need to feel confident using our tools. I live in Portland, Oregon, where Cozy is headquartered. It makes getting to work pretty easy, but I've also been a renter for a long time. So I'm going to be here sharing the renter's perspective and my expectation when I'm reviewing listings and things like that as we're moving along. But of course, we are joined by our co-host and expert landlord, Lucas Hall, who'll go into share how to meet all those expectations to make sure you're attracting all the top applicants and as many of them as possible. Welcome, Lucas.
Hey, Jordan, thanks for having me. This is super exciting. I honestly could talk about landlording all day, every day. So I love teaching and I love telling people about my stories. For those who followed Landlordology and Cozy for a while, we've probably met over a webinar one time or another. But I have been a landlord for about 13 years. A little more than that, and I have 5 properties in 3 states, mostly single-family homes, condos, and some short-term rentals. I founded a website called Landlordology. So if you know what that is, great. Thank you so much for being a fan. If you don't know what it is, go check it out. It's landlordology.com, and it's the best free resource for independent landlords on the planet. At least I think so. So I'm also the head of industry relations at Cozy, which means I build partnerships. I build any sort of connection that might actually help us reach more landlords and more tenants so that we can make renting easier for everyone. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, thanks, Lucas. So one of the things here is we want to hear all of your questions. That's a really key part of Cozy's webinars. And we encourage you to ask all your questions you have here throughout the session. And we're going to be monitoring those too. So on your screen, this is just a little shot of what your GoToWebinar control panel looks like. In the middle section is that question box. So feel free to type your questions in there and we'll keep an eye on those. We are going to have a dedicated Q&A section for the remainder of our time, but just as an FYI, we do have a pretty large group here today, and we're going to do our best to answer as many questions as we can during our live Q&A portion, but I also do want to make sure that we're mindful of everyone's time. So if we don't get to your question during the live Q&A, we do still want to help, absolutely, and make sure you get all the info you need. So once we do get to the live Q&A part, I'll talk a little more about that and how we can answer your questions if we don't get to it in live Q&A. But let's get rolling here with the content. So what are we doing here today? We have a loaded webinar for y'all this evening, but let's start with a brief overview of Cozy's features. So Cozy offers listings and website creation for those listings, also online applications, renter screening, as well as rent collection, maintenance requests, and expense tracking. Best of all, it's all 100% free for you to use as landlords and property managers. We're available anywhere you have internet, and in fact, we see about 1/3 of renters actually using Cozy on their phone. We don't have a mobile app right now. It's definitely on our radar, but in the meantime, our site is fully mobile optimized, so it's going to look great on your laptop or your tablet. You're going to have all the same features and functionality too, so don't worry about being able to lose the ability to track maintenance requests or something if you move over to your phone. Not the case. So that was a super brief overview of Cozy's features. But if you're interested in learning more about how all of our features work, I'll let you know how to attend one of our other live demos in a bit. But we do have a lot of important info to get to, so I tried to keep it pretty thin on the Cozy overview. But now that we got our general housekeeping out of the way and all that high level stuff, let's start talking about rental listings with Lucas. So Lucas, let me hand things over to you, so you can go ahead and start taking it away here. So
I'm so excited to see everyone here today. Thank you so much for attending. I know taking an hour out of your time and spending it not with your family or doing fun things outside of landlording is usually a bust. But thank you for taking the time to do this. I do see a couple questions coming in. That's awesome. If you do have questions at any point throughout this presentation, just throw them in that box, and Jordan and I will filter through those and answer them in the order in which they're received. Also, I see a question there about mobile. So if you're on your phone, it's important to know that if you can't see me right now, then just swipe right or swipe left on that video and you'll change screens. So that's something new. Otherwise, you can go back and forth on the presentation or the video. So perfect. All right, let's get rolling. So this is a presentation about how to advertise your rentals like a pro. So I've been doing it for 13 years. In that 13 years, I've only had 1 month of vacancy, and I have about 20 tenants change, move out, switch, turnover at any given point throughout the year. So I don't do hundreds of tenants, I don't have hundreds of tenants, but I do have a decent number, and having only 1 month of vacancy on one property over 13 years is pretty darn good. So that is a vacancy rate that most people will think is impossible. But I do that because I have the right tools in place and I have the right process, and I'm going to teach you that now. So it's actually fairly simple. Let's go. First, you have to realize what your objective is when you're trying to list a property and find a tenant, right? Most people think, oh, I just want to find a tenant. Well, if that's all you want to do, then that's what's going to happen, and you're just going to get any other tenant. You're just going to get a basic tenant who might abandon the property, trash the place, or just be not so stellar, right? And what we want is we want to find the best tenant. We want to find the highest quality tenant for your property in the shortest period of time. And why? Well, because time is money, and vacancy is money. And so you want to make sure that you aren't losing money. This is a business, and if you treat it like a business, you will succeed. So moving forward, these are the 3 Ps. I don't know who coined that term, maybe I did, but the 3 Ps for your success in listing a property. And so if you keep these in mind, you will have one of the best listings on the internet, and you will be able to find a tenant quickly, a high quality tenant as quickly as possible. So first, let me talk about price. That is the most important. I mean, that sounds obvious, and it kind of is for most people, but for a lot of landlords, hopefully not you, but for a lot of landlords, people don't really understand how important that plays into when a tenant or a renter is looking through listings and they see, oh, I want to find a place. We want to find somebody who's willing to pay the most money possible, but they want to find a place that's the best place for the cheapest. And so you have to keep that in mind. I'll go through some examples on how you can figure out price. Then you have to go through presentation. That's presentation online, like whether your listing looks pretty and talks pretty and just conveys the right message. And then also presentation in person. So whether that's you as presenting yourself as a landlord doing a showing, or your agent or somebody else that you work with presenting the place, and the property itself. How does the property show? And then going forward, promotion. So how are you getting the word out? How are you doing this? How are you actually trying to find a tenant? And honestly, if you're not succeeding, if you're not finding the highest quality tenant in the shortest period of time, then it's because of one of these 3 Ps. And you have to succeed at all 3 of them in order to get the most money for your rental and find a really good tenant. So let's dive in deep. So let me check my panel here and just make sure everybody is still good and online. Perfect, everyone. Yeah, hey, questions are coming in. Hey, good to see you, Kyle and Tyler. Thank you so much. Lorenzo, Bill, Brian, Jeff, Cheyenne, thank you for coming. This is great. I see the questions. We'll get to those at the end. Thanks. All right, moving forward. Price, the most important thing. So tenants really do care about price. And so why? Let's talk. Let's go through this. First, you as the landlord need to figure out what your Goldilocks price is for your particular unit. Now, if you have an apartment complex, you can kind of find a Goldilocks price for your whole building, maybe for a type, like a 2-bedroom is this price, a 1-bedroom is this price. But if you have a lot of single family homes, you need to find out what the Goldilocks price is for each one. If it's too hot, like too high, or too cold, meaning too low, you're not going to win. You're actually going to lose money, and maybe worse, have a really bad tenant who causes thousands of dollars in eviction or trash fees. You want to find that just right price, and that's the Goldilocks price. So let's dive in. How do you know if you are pricing it too high? Like, what does that actually look like? Because it's easy to say, oh, I think it's too high or I think it's too low, but how do you actually decipher what that is? First and foremost, it's going to take a longer time to find a tenant. If it's sitting around, you're not getting a lot of inquiry, then obviously something's wrong, right? Worse, you actually start to get vacancy. So if it's sitting empty, then you have something that you need to address here in the price. What I like to kind of view is, hopefully you're advertising before the lease is up. So you have a current tenant that's in there. They're living there. You know that they're going to leave. So you start advertising anywhere from 30 to 60 days beforehand. But if you don't find a lot of people interested then, and then you're also getting a couple of months of vacancy after that person leaves, you're just priced too high. No one really wants to pay what you're asking. And honestly, time is money. I mentioned that earlier. Vacancy is the #1 killer to your profit. So, if you come away from anything or with anything from this presentation, just remember you are trying to avoid vacancy, because that will more quickly than anything else will kill your revenue and your profit. How do you know? How do you know if it's priced too high? What are the red flags, right? So when I list a property, if I don't get any inquiries whatsoever on the third day, by the third day, then I know something's wrong. And I usually start with price. So I look at that and I think, okay, well, do I think it's priced too high? Maybe I was trying to push it a little bit. Maybe I'll lower it a little bit. If I don't think it's priced too high because of other factors, I'll look at some of the promotion and I'll look at some of the presentation, which we'll get into in a minute. So no inquiries by the third day. Again, hopefully you're advertising before the lease is up. And then I get inquiries, but no showings. That's another red flag. So I get some people who are interested. Sometimes they are desperate. Maybe no one else wants them, and so they're just applying to everywhere they can find. And then maybe they don't show up for showings. Maybe it's not that interesting. And I've had people just set up a showing and then never show because they found something cheaper down the street. And that's that. That's just how it works. And no applications. Let's say they do show up and then they don't actually want to follow through with the applications. That could be because you're priced too high and there's something better down the street. Now, how do you know, what does it look like if it's priced too low? So one, the consequences of doing this is that you get locked in at a cheaper rate. So you sign a typical 1-year lease, which is the most common type of lease out there, and you lock them in $200 less than what the market rate is for that place. And now you're losing not only $200, you're losing $200 every single month. And that is a horrible, horrible business plan. So you're locked in, you can't change it, you can't raise the rent. And so you want to make sure you get that right the first time. You will also sell yourself short. Not only will you be losing money, but if you don't value your place, if you think, or if it's too low, the tenant will know that. I mean, the tenants aren't stupid. They are just like you and me, and they know, and they've done their shopping, and they're savvy about paying rent because they have to do it. It's the largest expense they have every month, and they want to make sure they get a good deal. So if you're selling yourself short, they realize that, and they won't help you. They won't tell you that, and they typically will treat your property only as good as you treat it. So if you don't value it to the market rate, they're not going to value it either. And so you might have some issues there. If you do want to try a lower price, which I've done before, let's say you want to offer maybe a month-to-month rental in the beginning just to kind of get somebody in there, right? Let's say because vacancy is the #1 killer of revenue. Let's say your place comes vacant or is going to be vacant in January. Now, for most parts of the United States, January is a horrible month to find a tenant because it's cold and rainy and snowy, and no one wants to really rent a truck and move when their fingers are frozen. So no one's going to move. And so you're searching through a very small pool of applicants when you're trying to find a tenant in January. Now, what I would do is I would actually try to find a tenant in January to get somebody in there, maybe at a discount rate for 6 months or something, and then do it on month to month. And then after that, if they're still a good tenant, I might sign them into a year lease and just give them that heads up, give them the warning and proper notice, and put it at the right price. And that way I'd have a good year of that great price, as well as a rental cycle that ends in July or June, where it's nice and warm and everybody doesn't mind moving. Now, what are those red flags? How do you know if you have it priced too low? For example, if it's priced too low, renters are going to think, man, this is awesome. Like, this is a really high quality place and it's really cheap. And you'll get multiple inquiries in one day. Your phone will be ringing off the hook. You'll get emails. You'll get a lot of people who are just reaching out to find out if it's true, right? If you're offering a really good deal. And then you'll get lots of pressure from people who want to give you a holding deposit. Now, if you have 3 people on day 1 or day 2 trying to give you a holding deposit so that you can save it for them, then you're missing something, right? Like, they know something you don't, and that's it's priced too low. Like, they don't want to lose it, so they're willing to throw some money at you. Now, here's an example. Now, there's a lot of data on here. I'm gonna break it down for you. This is the Goldilocks example. In 1 year's time, let's look at these columns. So let's just say you have an apartment and it rents for about $1,000, $1,200 a month, and you're not really sure where to price it. Well, the average price, and that's $1,200 because that's the average price in the United States. Let's just say you list it for $1,200, and this is the example on the left where it's too high. $1,200, and you can't find anybody to rent it. In fact, your tenant leaves. You now have about 2 months of vacancy because you're sticking to your guns. Like, maybe the one down the street is renting for $1,200, but they have a pool and storage units and free parking and all that stuff. But you don't, and you still think you can get $1,200. You keep trying, you hold out, right? Well, after 2 months, you're like, oh, geez, that's 2 months of vacancy and I've got a mortgage to pay. So you finally lower it to $1,000, and then you start getting some inquiries. And those people seem serious and they really like your place and they want to do it, and you end up signing a lease. Well, then you have 10 months priced at $1,000, and so that's $10,000 in revenue. Potentially you've lost about $2,000 because of that 2 months of $1,000 rent in the beginning. So if you price it too high, you're going to lose $2,000 compared to what you could have gotten if you had priced it just right. So if you price it just right, you figure out, okay, it does actually rent for $1,000. You don't have any vacancy whatsoever, or maybe just a few days while you turn it over. And then you don't have to change anything, right? Because you didn't have to lower your price. It's perfect. And you do get 12 times 1,000, you get $12,000 a year, and you didn't lose any revenue. That is like maxing out what its potential is, and you're bringing in the money. If it's priced too low and you start too low, at $800, people are going to think, wow, that's a steal. You're going to find a tenant right away, and you think, this is amazing, I found a great tenant. What you don't realize is that you're actually losing a tremendous amount of money because you didn't take the risk. So at the end of the day, if you price it at $800 a month, you'll have $9,600 at the end of the year, and you would have lost more than if you price it too high, which is $2,400. Now, I think it's important in real life to look at this scenario, right? The most common thing I see is real estate agents or property managers who maybe are really busy, or they don't really want to deal with a listing, right? So you hire them, or you have hired them, and you want to give them your place to list, and they put it out there, and they just think, okay, well, here's this landlord. He doesn't really know what he could get for it, so I'm just going to price it a little bit low. And then they look like an all-star because they're like, hey, guess what? I found you a tenant in 3 days, and we signed a year lease, and it's amazing. And you think, that's great. I came away with a tenant. Well, what you don't realize is that they undercut you by $200. And for them, if they're making 10% of the rent, yeah, that's a little bit of money that they're missing, but it's not much. And they didn't have to spend 2 months finding a tenant, and they didn't have to look bad in front of you. And so now you're going to keep them around forever. You're not winning there. The property manager and the agent is winning because they're able to take on more clients. They're able to handle more volume, and they can do all that by pricing your property too low. So I see that many, many times. Now, that's not to say every agent or every property manager is going to do that. In fact, the good agents and good property managers are worth their weight in gold. I'll say that again. They are worth their weight in gold. but it's hard to find one that has your best interest in mind rather than theirs, because they're running a business. They have kids to feed too. All right, moving on. Now, how do you actually determine market rate? Like, we use examples of $1,200 to $800. How do you figure out what yours is? So there's a couple ways to do that. If you already are a cozy landlord, thank you. Hats off to you. I'm a cozy landlord too, and I manage my 5 properties from 2,000 miles away using Cozy, which is pretty awesome. And it's free, but one of the things that's not free about Cozy is if you wanted to pull up a Cozy rent estimate, they are amazing PDF documents that give you not only what we think your property will rent for based on actual rental data, not listing data, what the market is actually getting for rent in your area, and we'll compare it to apartments or single family homes in your area, and then we'll tell you what that rate is, but we'll also give you all kinds of vacancy rates and county data and crime rates and things like that that go into that. So you get a whole lot more, and you can pay for that. It's just a one-time fee when you're listing your property, and you'll get that PDF, and then you can decide if you want to take our recommendation or not. You can also check apartments.com. I like them a lot for apartments. They're actually on target and have the most data out of any of the sites, especially for apartments, because their volume is just amazing. Zillow is great too, but a lot of times Zillow, they really only have that listings data, which a lot of sites, that's the same problem. They only show you what a landlord wants to get. So you might be, like Sally, who's trying to rent it for $1,400 or $1,200, and the actual rent is $1,000. So you're going to see, oh, Sally's getting $1,200, but she's really not. She's actually going to crash and burn. So you just have to be careful there. Craigslist, same thing. There's a lot of volume on Craigslist, so you get a big sample that you can pull from, which is kind of cool. Rent Range is another great site, so you just pay by the report, and you can get rent estimates just like Cozy. And then Rentometer, sorry, I say Rentometer all the time. Rentometer is a free site where you can type in your address and it'll give you a rough estimate. Again, it's a rough estimate, so take it or leave it, but it's a good kind of analysis, if looking at all these sites. I would do this once and maybe do it once a year and kind of go through all of them. Pricing tips. So how do you know what to price it at, right? This is pricing. We're talking about pricing. If you list it for $1,200, that might be great, but $1,195 is better. It just looks better. And I would suggest marketing all of your properties with an ending dollar amount of 99, 97, or 95. So 1,195. It just feels better. It's just better. And a lot of times when people are searching through these listing sites, they will find the filters and their search tools are like at the hundreds. So if you price it at $1,200, you're going to be competing with the 1,200 to 1,400 crowd. Whereas if you price it under that, you're going to be competing with the 1,000 to 1,200 crowd, and you might have the best one. So you just want to make sure you're getting those filters. One tip I've seen too is a lot of times, things aren't separately metered, and you can't actually bill, or you can't give the utilities to the tenant because it's maybe combined with other units. So you, as the landlord, end up managing it, and that's something that happens every day. And I have a property that I have to manage all the utilities, which is a little hassle, but it's okay. Make enough money there. So one thing I do with those places is that I will actually find out what the market rate is, not counting utilities, and I'll market it for that price. And then what happens is I'll say, oh, okay, I know on average it's about maybe $200 for all utilities included. So I'll price it at, let's say, $1,200, and then I'll say there's a $200 utility fee that just gets added on every month, and it's a flat rate. And that's a lot easier for me to do that. And if I have to average it out or figure out like this specific month, I can do that too. I just have to write it in the lease. But do that, and that way your rental looks cheaper, right? It looks cheaper because you better believe that all the places down the street or the apartment around the corner isn't including utilities in their price. So why should you, right? It's going to make you look inflated. Now, the second P in the 3 Ps, right? Price, presentation, and promotion. Presentation is really how you present yourself and how the place looks online and in person. So your ad, and it all starts with your ad has 2 and only 2 jobs, right? It's not to tell them all about the place or all about the neighborhood. It's 1, get the click, and then get the inquiry. So 1 and 2, right? And what I mean is they're browsing through an entire, like a giant map of the whole city, or they're browsing through Craigslist that's just a giant feed of listings. You want to make sure that they see your headline and they say, I want to click on that. And then once they click on it, you need to convince them very easily, very quickly, usually within seconds. You have to convince them to contact you. So that's the only thing your ad is supposed to do. And the best way to do that is with pictures. So yeah, you can write all kinds of fancy words, and I'll get into that in a minute, but you need to have a great title, but the most important thing is a cover, and I think a cover or a picture. And we go back to that age-old saying, don't judge a book by its cover, but unfortunately we do, and covers are the most important thing in books. My wife is a award-winning author, and she spends the most money on covers because the covers really matter. And like here, the pictures really matter. So you have to focus on those two things first, realize what they're doing. And honestly, to the next point, I think that whenever you're trying to take pictures, or whenever you're staging a place, or when you're painting the colors or picking out light fixtures or whatever, you have to kind of keep the pictures in mind, right? Like what looks good in a picture, and that's what you have to strive for. Because if you don't have a good picture, you're never going to get them in the door. Okay, so step 1, use amazing pictures. Have that pictures first mentality. I just mentioned that. Like, think about how it's going to look in a picture before you do any renovations. Number 2, empty rooms are bad. I see this all the time, where I see an empty room and it's a picture of like, hey, here's a bedroom, and all it is like a corner, right? Or it's a giant empty room that's just walls and carpet. Like, gosh, man, if you leave it up to the tenant to try to imagine themselves there, you're going to have a hard time. So you need to stage it if possible. And I don't care if you only have one bed in the whole house, like take that bed and move it around from room to room to room and take pictures with that bed and that light and that little bedside stand. So just help them envision it. If you aren't good at pictures, which a lot of us aren't, or you don't have a quality camera or a newer phone that has a great camera, then hire a pro. It's easy. Like, you can find dozens of camera professionals or photo professionals on Craigslist or other sites. So it's not hard to find it. Don't use that excuse, but spend $100 and hire a pro. I would turn on all the lights. I do this every single time. So whether it's a showing or you're taking pictures, make sure you flip on every light in the house. And if you don't have enough light bulbs or light coming from the inside of the house, go borrow from the neighbor. Like, just borrow their light bulbs or borrow their lamps and stuff. And never take pictures at night. It's really horrible. Like, you're just not going to have a great picture. Make sure you open up all the blinds, all the curtains, everything. Just make it as bright as you can, and you will be already a step above the rest. I'm sure we've all seen pictures of toilets. Don't be that person. Especially don't be that person with the toilet seat up. So never take pictures of toilets. Like, nobody really wants to see that. And if you want to take a picture of the bathroom, just focus on the vanity, or clean the shower really well and take a picture of the amazing fixtures that you have on there. But don't take a picture of the toilet. That's a bad message. Here's an example. Perfect example, right? Now, the picture on the left is a real life picture of a bathroom that has had tenants in it for a couple of years. And now, like, God bless them, right? They actually have a little bit of cleaner in the corner, like they tried, but you can just see it's horrible and the toilet seat's up. Now, the right picture is beautiful. And, they just cleaned and like took their towels away and took the toilet paper and toothpaste away. And yes, there's a toilet in there, but look how good it looks, right? And it's mixed in with everything else. And if possible, I probably would have tried to avoid the toilet altogether, but it's still a good picture. Now, here's a picture of a bedroom. Look at the difference, right? Like, which one would you choose? This is what tenants are asking themselves. They're choosing based on pictures, and they're going to call the person based on pictures. Now, if you want to do it yourself, or you want to hire some companies that will help you do it yourself, there's a couple great tools out there. So these are some of my favorites. So we'll start on the upper left. Theta is a 360-degree camera, which is pretty darn cool. Like, if you want to splurge and get that, because it is very expensive. If you want to splurge and get that for all of your properties, you could take some really amazing photos, and then you could even create these three-dimensional walkthroughs, which is what the big apartment complexes are doing. Circle Pics is a company that's been around for a long time, and they are fantastic. So they actually started that whole like 360-degree picture where you just kind of look around. Now Theta, you can actually walk through all the rooms, which is neat. Circle Pics was the original creator of that 360 idea. And they sometimes have connections with photographers who will come set up that camera. So you can get 360-degree pictures and they'll host it for you. So pretty cool. Last time I did it, it was about 5 years ago, and I think I paid $120 and they photographed 360 degrees in every room of my house, which was awesome. Insta360 is also a really good service. Check that out. But my new favorite is actually a company called Box Brownie. It's BB in the corner. Let me show you some examples. Box Brownie, what they will do is if you send them a diagram like that upper left-hand corner, that diagram where it shows the layout of the house, you send that to them and they will take that and turn it into the picture on the right. So they will create that three-dimensional layout for you, and it's really cheap. Like some of the editing is like $7, right? It's just a no-brainer. So go ahead and do that and just get that done for your whole house, and it will set you apart. It will just set you apart. Now the picture on the bottom, look at that. Here's a picture of a garage. It's a typical garage. There's nothing wrong with it, but the picture on the right is after Box Brownie photoshopped out all of the stuff, almost all the stuff. And that picture on the right looks amazingly better, just so much better than the picture on the left. And it will help them see what it could be with all your stuff gone. Now, again, this is an empty room, but it's okay because it's a garage. Okay, so the third P, it's price, presentation, and promotion. Promotion is the third P to your success. This idea, the idea that if you're a new landlord and if you build it, they will come, that is just so false, so wrong. If you build a rental property or you create a rental and you furnish it or you stage it and you take all these pictures and if you just build it, they will come. No. There are lots of other people that are fighting for those renters' eyes, and you will need to fight for it as well. What that means is the first step is go where the people are, right? I mean, if you want to find renters, go to where they search for places. Make sure that you're listing your place on sites that have lots of traffic. Don't just post it on a board, like a next door board in your neighborhood. Like that's good, but Nextdoor is covered with homeowners. It's not covered with renters. So, just think about where are the potential tenants that you're looking for. Are you near a university? Like maybe you get connected with those the student center? Like, is there a hospital nearby that has traveling nurses all the time? Maybe you can connect with them. Maybe you just go to the website and list your property that gets 30 to 40 million hits a month, like apartments.com. Now, how to build your perfect listing. Now, these are just high-level items, and I will give you a template for this too, so bear with me. But these are just high-level items that you want to throw in every listing. Now, don't make your listing super short like you used to in the newspaper days, right? Most of us don't remember that, but you got charged per the letter, I believe, or per the word, and so you got a little 2-inch by 2-inch square, and you had to fit it in there, and so you were like $1,200, beautiful apartment, call Glenn. That's all you did, and it was horrible, and it was just like hit or miss. So with online listings, you can be really descriptive, and you can actually create beautiful listings that people will see and want to visit. So first and foremost, make sure you include that price. So many times listings don't include the price, and you just think, oh, I'm going to attract more people if I don't put a price on there. Wrong. You are not going to show up in any searches. So make sure you itemize the rooms too. So if you have a group style house, or you are trying to find maybe a group of people that want to live together as roommates, make sure you say, hey, this house is $2,000, and that comes out to about $500 per room. And not that they have to pay separate, but you kind of split it out for them, because if they're a bunch of roommates, they might think, oh, okay, I can afford 500. Like that's pretty good. Use rich adjectives like luxury and just gorgeous and amazing and all these other words that invoke emotion. And then specify luxury brands. If you have a Viking stove or a Sub-Zero fridge, make sure you say that. Like make sure that you do that, because there are people who will pay for nice amenities, and they will actually search for brands like Sub-Zero or Viking, or if you have a huge TV, right, like 80-inch TV, like throw that in there. And if that comes with the place, throw that in there, because they will search for those things. And then always use a map, and always give very brief directions verbally to, or written. And then use exact numbers for total cost. Don't try to say, hey, utilities are roughly a few $100s a month. That's just going to turn people away. Like, be very specific. Say on average it is $247 a month, averaged out over 12 months. It will make them trust you. If you don't know HTML, which is the coding language for the internet, if you don't know that, it's okay. I've got a template for you. But you can use HTML in Craigslist titles, and you can use it on other sites too. And so you can do things like make your text bold, or you can make it italic, or you can make it red or blue. And it just creates, you can add symbols that create attention. So it's a nice trick I've used. Sometimes it works really well, and in other cities it doesn't work so well. So it just depends. Always use lots of photos. This is also a no-brainer, but you would be surprised how many people only throw up one photo and can, call it a night. I would suggest, if you think you need 12 photos, try to get 24. Like, try to do double what you've been doing and try to add to that, because they will eat that up, right? And then if you've not done a video walkthrough, I strongly suggest that. So this is super easy. Just take out your phone, record yourself walking around the apartment or house, and give a brief description about what it is, like, the things in the room, or, what type of carpet it is, or what color the paint is, or the amenities that might be close by, or the backyard. Just walk through it with them, and then upload it to YouTube and put a link in your listing. It's super easy, and they will love you for it. Now, I've actually had people come to my showing just to verify that the place was real, but they were already convinced that it was the place for them because of the video. So it's really powerful. Number 5, make sure you syndicate that listing. So what that means is you create a listing, let's say create it with Cozy, and then make that listing go as far as you can out on the internet. Make sure you get it to other sites that can see it. And so Cozy will help you with that. We will actually send it to realtor.com and doorsets.com, and realtor.com is a great way to get it on the MLS in a lot of cities. So real estate agents will see it too. So that's something unique. If you've not ever, bought a domain name, try it, right? Go to GoDaddy or Network Solutions or a handful of other domain providers, and just figure out a domain name. Like, let's say you have a house on 123 Main Street, maybe look up 123mainstreet.com and see if you can buy it. They cost about $10 a year. And you have that domain, and then what you do is you create the listing, whether you put it on Cozy or Craigslist or Apartments or Zillow. You take that URL and you forward the domain to it. So when you pass out this domain, you say, hey guys, go to 123mainstreet.com. It'll forward to your listing automatically, and then they can see all your pictures and all the text you wrote, and then they can even watch the video and apply if they want to, which is key. So you have to have a URL that is easily shareable. And if you buy a custom URL, you can reuse it year after year after year. Now, these are the sites I recommend posting to. There's, I think, 27, last time I counted, reputable listing sites out there that actually have some traffic. Now, the best ones here, I recommend using Cozy. Not that Cozy is a listing site per se, but what Cozy will do is it will give you a beautiful page where all your pictures and your video and your description and an application goes. So everything's all in one spot, and that's what you send your custom domain to. And then Cozy will send it to Realtor and Doorsteps. Also put it on apartments.com. It's free. Zillow has a listing site too. And then Craigslist also. Craigslist works great in some areas. Other areas it's just full of spam and trash. So just take it with a grain of salt. Now, I want to show you something. I actually put together a template for you. So what I'm going to do, thank you for listening to all that. What I'm going to do here is on the right side, you have a GoToWebinar control panel. And at the bottom there's a little section called handouts. And so I'm just going to drag this template, which will kind of walk you through the things that you need to think about, and also give you some of those HTML tags into that handout section. So if you open up your little GoToWebinar panel and just click on that sample add template.pdf, you should have it by now. So it's opened up there. If you click on it and nothing happens, try right click, save as, and you can save it to your computer. So what that looks like is this PDF. Perfect. So here's a little description, conversations. This is me creating a Craigslist ad, but you can use this in Cozy or Zillow or Apartments. You can do that. Here are some things like, capitalization, highlight the selling points, like spacious apartment, amazing view, close to stadium, these things. These are examples of some of the best listings that I've ever created that got, sometimes dozens of responses and multiple showings and then multiple people wanting deposits. And I was able to command the highest rent in the area. So check out this list. So here's the thing. I've got the HTML tags that you can use in certain sites and what they do, and then some examples of the codes. The symbols that I like to throw in the titles. There, I like the arrows. They tend to work really well. So give that a try. There's some helpful things in there. So make sure you download it. It will be in that download section for the remainder of the webinar. So you have until it is finished. And then once it shuts down, you can't download it anymore. So make sure you get that. Now, going back here, moving forward. All right. So next, as a landlord, I was able to tell you all the things that I do that makes me successful in trying to find a renter. But it's super important to hear a renter's perspective. So Jordan has been a renter his entire life, and that is by choice. And he is choosing to be a renter in this ecosystem, and he loves it. And in fact, it's cheaper to usually rent than own. And so he's making a smart financial choice there. Let's hear what he has to say about his perspective on what we've just talked about. Take it away, Jordan. I will now share.
Thank you so much, Lucas. Those were all super valuable. I always learn so much from your webinars, so I definitely took a couple of those tips and put them in my back pocket there. But to kind of reinforce Lucas's points and kind of think through some of those tips as a final checklist in the context of how potential renters are viewing your listing, I just kind of wanted to give you some perspectives of listings from the renter side and just kind of some things that I go over when I'm looking for a new place to rent. So, first thing is, what are your renters going to feel or think when they see your listing for the first time? Look, renting is a personal and emotional thing. It is. I mean, we have memories tied to where we live and our work and all that kind of stuff. And you kind of need to tap into that. And to me, listings are really all about first impressions. Yeah, finding a rental in a great place, in a price point you can afford is first. But beyond that, I'm focusing exclusively on how was that listing put together and what's that immediate reaction I have when viewing the listing? Listings absolutely give off a feeling, and you want to make sure it's the right one. So second, though, what is your listing focusing on? In my experiences renting in LA and Portland, I've seen that folks sometimes tend to go with super, super pared down basic listings in popular areas because they think, just the volume of renters alone is going to drive leads. Partially true, but not totally. You're still missing out on a segment of folks. So really a stellar listing for a rental in a high demand area is just going to set it further apart. And especially in popular areas, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself that edge. Like Lucas said, you only have a few seconds to hook someone. And so really spend some time in that listing headline, that listing description, and make sure that they're in right from the get-go. Last but not least, as important as what's in your listing, also ask yourself, what is it missing? Is there enough info in the listing description to tell me why I should live there? Are there enough high quality photos that show off the best parts of the property? Honestly, as a renter, I don't really need to see the bedroom and bathroom count reiterated over and over. I want to see some of the other aspects, and obviously you don't want to, wax poetic here. But I do want to know, what's in that neighborhood, what makes your rental community or neighborhood unique. Maybe these aren't the things you want to lead with, but that is kind of a nice conclusion to wrap everything up. So just some things to think about and kind of some of what goes into my approach when I'm looking for a new rental, which I'll actually be doing again this summer. So a nice refresher on all this kind of stuff. So, we talked about the impact of a great rental listing. You've heard my experiences as a renter and from Lucas and those pro tips on how to advertise your rental like a pro. But now that you have all this great knowledge, what should you do with it? Well, create a cozy listing. That's what. After this, if you've never created a listing in Cozy, you'll have all the info you need to create an awesome one. If you have used Cozy to list before, currently, or in the past, you can update it to make sure it stands out like never before. So we're going to take a look at how Cozy listings work, but first let's talk really briefly about the benefits. Vacations are costly, or vacancies are costly, vacations too. Vacancies are costly, like Lucas mentioned, and month over month that starts to add up. When your rental is empty, you're missing out on all that income. It's as simple as that, and we want to help. Cozy listings are an easy and a great way to create a beautiful website for your rental, which is incredibly valuable for several reasons. The first is when you create a listing in Cozy, you're going to get a unique link and a website for your rental. So that means whether you have one property or several, you'll have a customized listing for each, which looks really nice and super pro. This is also going to help your property stand out because it includes a gallery of all of your photos, lease terms, screening requirements, amenities, pet policies. You're going to see, even at a video tour, everything your applicants need to know all in one place. And when renters are informed and have all the information provided to them that they need, you've put them in the best position to move forward with an application. And bonus, huge differentiator, Cozy listings actually have a built-in application as well, which makes it super easy for potential renters to apply. Aside from having a great listing though, the other half of the battle is promoting it when and where you need to. You want to give your listing all the exposure you can, and with a unique listing link, you can easily share that everywhere, share it far and wide, directly with potential renters, Facebook, Craigslist, wherever you need to. All you're going to really need is your apply link here, and the rest is go and spread it far and wide. Lastly, free syndication and easy updates. So, you have your cool listing, you've shared it everywhere, but how can you make updates when you need to? Along with the ability to share your listing link directly once you activate your listing in Cozy, we'll automatically share it for free with our partner sites, Realtor.com and Doorsteps.com, to give it more exposure and get it in front of more renters. Then you'll get emails from those sites whenever renters are interested in your place. And if you ever need to update your listing, you can do so through Cozy, and that listing will automatically be updated across all the other sites, meaning you're not going to have to go to all 3 different sites to update your listing. So, we've covered a lot of ground on how to create listings in Cozy, but you can apply the tips we've covered with Lucas to any other sites you're advertising on as well. If you do have listings across those other sites, make sure that, you include all that stuff, the great listing descriptions, the photos, all that kind of stuff. But this should be evergreen content wherever you're creating and advertising your listing. Now though, let's actually get into Cozy and walk through the listing process. So I won't do a super in-depth one. I just kind of want to show you what that listing flow looks like so you can kind of get an idea of the different steps and stages there. And instead of creating a listing from scratch, I'm actually going to walk through one that's been created already. So that way at the end, we're actually going to be able to see what a live listing in Cozy looks like, exactly what one of your applicants would see. So let me go into our Cozy account here. And perfect. So actually, let me zoom in a little bit. I know it looks super small. Here we go. So right off the top, bedrooms, bathrooms, the usual stuff. But again, like Lucas mentioned, really spend some time crafting an awesome listing headline and description. This is what's going to hook your renters, and as Lucas said, get the click. So make sure you have an eye-catching headline and then really adding some value in your listing description. So really spend some time there. The details section is we're just going to add any other info about your property. Pet policy, what's the feature and amenity situation there? Air conditioning, dishwasher, outdoor space. But at the bottom here, there's certain things that are super valuable about your property and you want to call extra attention to. And that's what this box is for. So if you had something like free yard maintenance or utilities included or a great view, add that here. I'm really of the mindset, like wherever you can add extra value to your listing, you should take it. And this is a great spot to do so. Next, you're just telling folks rent and deposit, and then the lease duration and when it's available. I know some folks kind of leave this bottom section blank, but enabling your renters with all the info they need to make an informed decision, like planning out movers or comparing 2 different openings to see one's a 12-month lease, one's a 24-month. You just want to give them all the information they need to make an informed decision, and that goes a long way. Now in Cozy, you can add as many photos as you'd like here, so feel free to go crazy, add a caption, whatever you need. You can toggle these around. It's important to note that the first photo is always going to be the cover image for your listing, so the very first one folks see. Now at the bottom here, what's really cool is if you were to record a video and upload it to YouTube, you could stick the link here and we'll give you a cool little video tour button on your listing in Cozy. You'll also be able to select if you want screening reports to be ordered and shared with you as part of the application process as well. Last but not least, you can review everything here, add some contact info if you'd like. Next step is just turning this on, at which point when you activate your listing, we're going to start syndicating it to those partner sites, doorsteps, and realtors. So your listing is going to get more exposure in front of a lot of eager renters who are hopefully getting ready to submit those applications ASAP. Now, before we kind of move on here, let's go take a look at this listing link so we can see exactly what that would look like if your applicant was checking it out. So regardless of whether you're sharing, someone finds it via Facebook or sharing it directly, this is where they're going to come. So here's your cover image. Here's all the other information we've added, the rest of the photos, that cool little video tour button, the awesome listing description we put together, and then all the other details that they're going to need. Do I need to submit screening reports? What's the amenity situation, map, all that kind of stuff. So the key thing here is on a lot of other sites, your renters are having to go to this site for pictures or this site for more information or this site for amenities. With Cozy, they're going to be able to apply right from this page, and they'll be able to see all the information they need to make an informed decision. All right, wow, y'all. We have covered a lot of ground here this evening. We went over the impact of a great rental listing. We went over how important an eye-catching listing itself is, the headlines. Then we heard from Lucas on how to craft a polished and professional listing, which we followed up with a demo of listings in Cozy. So we're actually going to shift over to our live Q&A time, and I'm seeing a lot of awesome questions come in here. But if you do need to leave and go about your day, thank you so much for joining. If you do have some questions that maybe you don't have time to ask now, you can reach us 7 days a week at support@cozy.co. So feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to help. If you would like to stay for the live Q&A section though, we're actually going to get into that now. So just a heads up here, we're not really able to advise on questions around specific legal topics and state laws. So you'll want to reach out to a trusted legal advisor for those. But other than that, everything's pretty much fair game. So with that, let me pull up some questions here and we'll start going through these. All right. So let's see here. All right. Well, Lucas, I have some questions here. This is kind of, I guess these are around construction. So a few folks were kind of asking, hey, when you're getting ready to renovate your property or there's some construction going on, what's the best way to complete renovations without kind of having an extended vacancy for your property? They're losing out on a lot of income, but is there any way to kind of minimize that when you are undergoing construction on one of your properties?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So let's do this when we queue up questions. So if you, Jordan, if you can just say the first name of the person who's asked it, so that way, like if they're listening kind of on the side, they can
totally
they can chime in. Yeah. So who asked that question?
Yeah. So the first person I saw ask that, their name was Begum, Begum. Yeah.
Begum. Sweet. So yes, so when I have to do repairs or some pretty decent renovations, if the renovations cause the unit to be uninhabitable, meaning that it would be illegal or it would be not wise for someone to live there during those renovations, then as a landlord, I am responsible to find a place for them to live if I expect them to continue paying rent. So what that usually means is I have to put them up in a hotel for a couple days, or a week or whatever it takes to do that. And this is actually most common when, there's lots of rain and there's flooding or basement flood, and now you've got, 2 inches of water in the basement and potential mold issues. So, you can kick out the tenant for a couple days, put them in a hotel, and then get a restoration crew in there. So that kind of stuff happens quite a bit. If you just want to do something cool, like you want to add a deck, if it doesn't affect inhabitability, then you can just do it. So just give them proper notice that you're going to be sending people over there to do it, or repair the roof, or whatever it is. just do it while they're there. They realize that this is an issue, that the repairs need to happen, and it's reasonable. So when you're not being reasonable is like you decide to actually redo all of the floors while they're living there, right? And so you make them move their furniture around from room to room while you do that. That's unreasonable. So that's the type of thing you'd wait for a vacancy or wait for a turnover to happen. Now, the way that I minimize the amount of vacancy during a turnover renovation is I have everybody lined up weeks in advance. So do a lot of project planning, make sure that you have the contractors lined up and get it like pumped out in a few days. I can paint a whole house if I hire the right painter, and I can do it in like 24 hours. So just make sure that you've got everything lined up, and that's the best way to reduce vacancy.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, Lucas. Kind of around the vacancy there and remodeling, Jurgen had a really good question here, and Jurgen asked, when should that listing be made? So, they have a tenant leaving at the end of the month, and they're going to need to go in and do like a little remodeling and painting, and they're wondering when the opportune time is to get that listing active so they can start, receiving inquiries and applications and things like that.
Right. I like to start advertising at a minimum 60 days before the lease is over. So the reason I do 60 days is because responsible, well-to-do tenants typically plan. Like the types of people that you want living in your place are the people that plan their life, and they are good with their budget, and they are good with their finances, and they start looking for a new place about 60 days before they need to move, and sometimes even 90 days. But what I've experienced is if I post something 90 days beforehand, I start getting people who say, hey, can I move in sooner than it's available? But if I advertise at 60 days, somewhere between 45 and 60 days, I will find people who say, great, the timing is perfect. I'd love to move in right after you have your last tenant move out. And it gives me plenty of time to do a showing and have a lease signed. So that's my recommendation, 45 to 60 days. Once you start getting into the sub 30-day area, then you start getting people who are month to month. Maybe they don't have a better grip on their finances. Not that those two are related, but they maybe are getting evicted and they need to find something really quickly, or maybe they don't plan ahead and they just try to find something in 2 days. And those types of people are more prone to abandoning your property and more prone to just making quick decisions and don't think them through. So I'm not so interested in renting to people who don't think things through. So that's why I try to advertise, 45 to 60 days out.
Awesome. Cool. Another great question here. Martin asked this one, and we kind of talked about setting the right price and ending with a 5 versus like a 0, things like that. So they wanted to know if you thought that there was any value in being one of the lower priced option within a higher range of rents. Like, is that beneficial sometimes, or is that something they should always stay away from, or kind of what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'd say try it out, experiment. Like every single submarket is different, so. It's going to depend on who your competitors are, what type of units are in your area. So generally speaking, I want to be just under or just above one of the thresholds. So, usually that's the hundreds, right? So like 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, 1,300. I prefer to be just under. That works for me, but just try it. Try $1,201 and see what happens.
Jamal here had a really interesting question. I'm really kind of curious about this one. So they wanted to know if there was, if there was any tips to advertising to a crowd with a particular financial ability. So, if it's a crowd, that was kind of would be more comfortable in paying like $800 to $900 for a rental. What's the best way to still kind of use those impact words that describe your rental, but still also kind of be realistic about some of the rent pricing?
Okay, so 800 to 900 per rental. I have no idea if that's high or low for your area. So, if you're in, and I'm just going to throw out areas, please don't be offended if this is your area, but, if you're in like rural Alabama, you can rent a nice house for $500 a month, and cheap might be $300 a month. But, you go to a major city and $500 a month isn't going to buy you a closet. So, you need to, I don't know what you're talking about. So I guess what I would say is if you're looking to attract a certain crowd, let's just pretend 800 to 900 is on the lower side, because the average rent amount is about $1,200 a month. Then I would use incentives around money. So I would say really affordable. I would say inexpensive per square foot. I would show that. And if it's a group type home or roommate situation, I would certainly break that out and say averages, like 600 bucks a month or whatever per room, and figure it out by square footage. Now, if you really want to attract maybe the less expensive crowd, I would certainly start thinking about advertising 1 month free of rent. And then what you do is you just add in, kind of compensate the rest of the months, but you give them that 1 month free, or you lower the security deposit and try to make it up over multiple months, just to give them a financial incentive to move into your place. And those are all little tricks that you can do to just make your place more appealing to a lower income crowd. Now, if it's a higher income crowd, you certainly want to call out all those luxuries. You certainly want to call out the amount of garage space you have, and any sort of amenities. With a lower income crowd, you certainly want to tell how far away, meaning like how many walking distance, feet or miles is it to the nearest bus stop or public transportation. So all those are really good, and there's a market for everything, and there are amazing tenants in every class of income. So you just got to find that amazing tenant for what you're dealt.
Awesome, cool. Great question, excellent explanation. So folks, I know we're getting close, we're about 6 after, so Lucas and I are going to go through a few more questions here. I'll kind of talk about how you can send in other ones after, but if you do need to log off, you can reach us at support@cozy.co with any follow-up questions. You're also going to get a follow-up email from me with some resources as well, and you can reach out that way. But let's go through a few more here. Let's see here. So there were a couple questions. A lot of folks had questions around pictures for their listing and kind of some tips there. So Monica had one, and if their property is under construction right now, the only pictures that they have are the ones where the property is in the process of being updated. If they wanted to list their rental right now, what would you recommend as far as pictures? Should it be like photos coming soon or previous pictures, or how would they kind of navigate that situation?
Yeah, I would find pictures that look the best. Honestly, I mean, a renovation picture isn't going to look good. I mean, if the floor is ripped up or the drywall is taken down, it's not appealing. So make it look inhabitable. And if you have previous pictures, even if it doesn't match, right? It doesn't match the layout, doesn't match the paint color, doesn't match the fixtures, whatever. If you have a previous picture that looks good, use it. Because remember, pictures are really only good for getting them to click on it and getting them to inquire. Once they get there, they'll see, oh, wow, they've really made it better. So this is awesome. Aren't I glad I clicked on that picture? Now, if you don't have any pictures whatsoever of the inside, then hire somebody or do yourself, but take amazing pictures of the outside, like of the outside and of the neighborhood. So if you live near a really cool market or a really cool soccer field or something like that, take pictures of those things and show off the amenities around the house. And then when somebody asks, or they want to come see it, you can show them and be honest with them, like, hey, it's under renovation or whatever. But you just want them to click and then inquire.
Awesome. All right. We're going to do a couple more questions here. One more is going to be around a listing, pictures. I feel that's been kind of a popular topic. And then another one is just going to be around some advertising tips. So this other question that Stace had sent in, and they were asking, is it better when you're listing your rental to have it staged or furnished, or is it okay to have it empty for pictures if it's super clean? Like, as long as it's clean and well lit and everything like that, is it okay to be empty, or is the best case there to have it staged or furnished?
So I like staging, but I don't like paying $2,000 for a stager. So there's a time and a place for it, and if it doesn't make sense financially to do staging, then an empty picture is going to be fine. I would just do whatever you can to make that room look as big as possible, and honestly, even if you stick like a cute chair in the corner, that's going to be better than nothing. I mean, that's going to give perspective, and it'll show people like, okay, here's how big the walls are. It just really helps. So do anything you can. Like I mentioned earlier, like even if you take one bed and you move it around from the 3 different bedrooms and take pictures with that single bed in each room, that's better than nothing. So try to stage it with what you've got, and certainly don't spend thousands of dollars for that. But if you can stage it with nice looking things, try that.
Excellent. All right, and I think we're probably going to finish up with this one from Shane here. And this was a question. You know, I know Cozy is focused on kind of residential properties, and that's kind of where most of your experience has been, Lucas. But if you had any recommendations for folks who needed to list commercial properties, or maybe if there were any sites or resources you could recommend where they could kind of research rental rates around other nearby commercial properties, or any tips there?
Yeah, so commercial properties, absolutely go look on LoopNet or CoStar. Those CoStar owns all of the commercial data, especially related to sales, but they do have leasing data too. So I would certainly go look there. CoStar is not free; there is a subscription fee for that. But if you're in commercial, then it's it's going to be worth it. So check out CoStar and check out LoopNet. I don't know exactly what the rental prices are on LoopNet, even if they have those, but I know they have a lot of commercial data. So those 2 sites are where I'd recommend. Brian, if you're still on, you're asking when are you going to add the functionality for a tenant to pay every 14 days in Cozy? That is not on our roadmap right now. So just to be completely transparent, we're not adding a biweekly payment system. It's really just for monthly payments. And that's the vast majority of leases out there. So we're happy with that. Sorry. Okay, so the next one, Lorenzo. Oh, nope, that's not a question. Okay, I'm glad you got the audio figured out. Jeff is asking, do you assist in creating the lease document? No, we're not lawyers, so we don't actually assist in creating the lease document. We do, however, recommend a bunch of different sites. If you go to landlordology.com and go to the resources section, you'll see what we recommend. There's about 6 reputable ones that I think could help you and give you state-specific leases. Now, those state-specific leases are critical. Don't just download any free lease out there because it'll hurt you in the long run. Make sure you pay the 50 or 60 bucks for the lease and get the one that's specific to your area. Or you could always have a lawyer draft you one for a few $100. All right, so Jeff is also asking not to get too much into a total business plan, but if there's no cost to me as a landlord to use your service, how does Cozy make money to provide this service to me? It's simple. Cozy actually makes money on the tenant screening reports. So if you want to screen somebody and find out what their credit score is and find out a background check on them, they will pay that. It's $39 for the bundle for both those things, and you get a copy and they get a copy, and it's real easy. And there's enough money in that we can offer all of these other services for free. So it's an amazing business model for us, and it allows us to give away almost everything. All right, so Anthony is asking, I'm looking at putting solar on homes, and I want to rent and include the electric in the rent cost. How do I list the property with that in mind? I feel like the rental cost, including electric, it'll be filtered out too high as a result. So I would just suggest doing what I mentioned earlier, where you find the market rent rate, and then you figure out what the electric value is going to be, and you say, oh, it's, here's the rent price, and then there's $100 utility fee for these things every month, and that's it. And maybe you might be off a few bucks, but at least it makes it easy. And then if you want to be very specific and to a decimal point, you could actually figure out what it is on a monthly basis and just bill them every month. Now, that's a little bit more time. Okay, let's see. All right. Anthony is asking, will Cozy give a rent estimate on a property you're looking at buying as an investment property, but you don't own yet? Yes, absolutely. So you can just create a listing, but not put it out there, but just create a draft listing and then buy this rent estimate, and it'll tell you everything you'd want to know about the rent price that you could possibly get for it. All right, Martin, on pricing tips, is there if someone is searching for price range, don't you think the value is, okay, this is one we already asked. Great, thanks, Martin. Okay, Brian, do you recommend any specific type of camera, i.e. a panoramic real estate camera? Those really cool ones that I mentioned earlier are nice, but they're really fancy. Honestly, you just need a Canon or Canon Rebel or like any other HDR camera, or honestly, like the new iPhones have amazing cameras, and if you can do that, that might actually be just fine. You just need really good lighting, and if you hold your finger down on the screen and focus on lighting points, you can adjust the exposure, which is really cool. Also, if you want to get more of a fisheye lens, that's kind of big, but more like a rounded view where you can see more of the screen or more of the room in your camera, you can actually buy those little lenses that clip onto your phone on Amazon. You can buy those things, and they're probably only like 10 or 20 bucks, and you can get different lenses. So that's pretty cool. I've done that in small rooms just to show it off better. All right. So Eunice is asking, are we going to get a feature in Cozy that will help us track our leases and send a reminder 90 to 60 days before the lease ends? Yes, that actually happens now. So 45 days, we send a notice to you saying like, hey, your current lease is scheduled to end. You should either renew with your tenants or start planning for our listing and planning to find somebody else. So we do that anyway. All right. Great. Martin, thank you for the tip. He just said you can expose the phone lighting a little bit better. Yeah, great. Thanks. All right, Kim, how do you get calls if you give the address right away? How do you get calls if you give address right away? I give out my phone number, or I put a fake phone number like a Google Voice phone number in there, and I take calls. So I want them to contact me. I also put out either my real email address or like a business email address for the property, or I use the relay, the mail relay that a lot of the sites have. I think that's what you're asking. Okay, so Karen, thanks for coming. What are the best sites? Oh, no, Shane, that's commercial properties. Perfect. Okay, we're flying through these because I know everyone's got dinner, right? All right. Mr. A. Moore or Mrs. A. Moore, how did you get the diagram to submit to BoxBrownie? BoxBrownie.com is that site that converts things. You just draw it. So if you want a diagram, just draw it on graph paper. It can be that simple. And then contact them, sign up for an account, contact them. You can either upload it or email it to them. Okay, so let's see. Karen's asking, do we help with leases? I answered that one, no, we don't, but we give you places to go. Joyce is asking, what's that BoxBrownie creation tool? It's BoxBrownie. Manny is asking, is it a good idea to list phone numbers or just work with email and text messaging? Because lots of millennials like just text messaging. And I agree. I think text messaging is an amazing way to contact people. And in fact, a lot of my inquiries have come through text messaging in the last couple of years. So certainly make that an option. Otherwise, you might miss out on a type of tenant. So I do like giving out everything because I want those inquiries. I don't want to make it hard. All right. Brian is asking, can we add a document to the Cozy rental listing that highlights the things we require, like 625 credit score, certified employment, pay stubs, etc.? No, you cannot upload a document, but you can just put that in the description. So that can just be part of your description. And a lot of people do that. So no need to add a second section, just put it in the main section. Stacy is asking, when listing your rental, is it better to have it staged or furnished? Oh, okay, sorry, Stacy, we already answered this. Perfect. I like staged rentals. Hubert is asking, is there a rental premium, percentage-wise, for newly constructed home that you'd recommend over a comparable that's 7 to 15 years older? Ooh, that's a tough one. So if your property is brand new or your unit is like brand new remodeled, right, and everything's new kitchen, new tile, new carpet, new bathrooms, new showers, that kind of stuff, then you certainly can get a premium. And I have done that before, and it is worth it. Tenants will pay for that. There's a crowd of tenant that will pay a premium for a place that is brand new or remodeled. Now, percentage-wise, I don't know. I would probably try to just find out what the market rate is for that type of house on per square footage, and then I would just try to be at the very tippy top of that range. So I can't say it's 10% or 5% or 1%. Just try to be on the tippy top, and people will pay that. They will. Okay. Timothy is, does your insurance coverage pay for displaced tenants lodging when your house is uninhabitable? Timothy, I am so glad you asked this question. So yes, it does. If you have told your insurance company that it is a rental property and that it is what they call a landlord policy. If it's just a basic homeowner's policy, which happens all the time when people live in it, and then the owners move out and they never tell their insurance company, and then they have tenants. But if it's a landlord policy, most of those landlord policies do pay for tenant displacement. All right, Manny is asking, what is a minimum credit score you should look for in a rental application? Do you screen people who are just 18 since they don't have a lot of credit history and they might be living with their parents? You know, minimum credit score just depends on your area. You know, what type of house you're is, class A, B, C, or F. But you know, I say a minimum of 700, and that's my minimum, and I'm able to get that. So it's kind of self-eliminating. So I do put that in the ad sometimes. Do I screen people who are 18? It depends. I do screen everybody the same per property. So if I usually have one property at a time that's listing. But yeah, I want to try to treat everybody the same. So I want to treat them all the same, and they all have to pay for a credit report and background check. I mean, I really don't want to get into an issue where I should have screened them and I didn't. So I just do it. Okay, so let's see. Tabitha is asking, what items do you always include with move-in requirements, like first month's rent, last month's rent, pet deposit, etc.? Great question, Tabitha. So I have had 13 years to figure this out, and I have come to the conclusion that I only take a security deposit. Now, if there's pets and I allow pets, then I will just add in more money to that security deposit. I won't collect a separate pet deposit. I will just make the security deposit bigger. And that way I can use that money for any damage that a pet or a person causes. Now, I don't ever collect first month's or last month's rent. I mean, first month, maybe, but usually I just make the first month's rent due the day they move in. And that way they're taking possession, I'm collecting rent, and I've got their deposit in case something happens on that first day. Now, I never collect last month's rent because that gets into lots of messy prepaid rent laws. So you could potentially have to pay interest on that. You potentially have to keep it in a separate account. It just depends on what state you're in. So I never collect last month's rent. It also sets a bad precedence for them to just leave the place early, and it just, they usually don't clean up and all that. Okay, so Timothy, you're asking, do your tenants agree to showings before they move out? Yes, they do. So that is the best way that I've found. Number one, you have to have a good relationship with your current tenant. You have to ask them, hey, listen, I really appreciate you as a tenant. How would you like to make some money? I'll pay you $25 for every showing that you help me with. If you want to hire them or get their assistance in a showing, like maybe they can show it for you if you send a qualified applicant. But if they don't want to do that, then you're well within your right to show the property while they're still living there. And you just politely ask them, hey, I've got showings, like for 4 hours on Saturday, I've got a bunch of people lined up. I'd love it if you could just go catch a movie or just go take the day off or whatever, and make it easy for them. If they work every day, Monday through Friday, then doing showings during the day is also a great idea. And just make sure they know you're coming over, usually 24 hours in advance. Okay, so all right, we're getting through these. Great, guys. Okay, Lunny is asking, my property is being offered furnished, which leads to a more specialized tenant and a higher rental price. Do you have any advice for me? So I have been down this road. I had a little studio on Capitol Hill that was furnished, and I furnished it because it was so small that if I didn't furnish it, nobody else was going to be able to get their furniture in there. And I had to have a Murphy bed, and it was very specific. But I commanded, it was $1,800 for 338 square feet. That's an amazing rate, right? And it's because it was furnished well. So yes, if you want to take that on, it will command a higher rent. The problem I experienced was that oftentimes you get people who are interested in the place, but they say, hey, listen, I've already got my stuff. Like, can you take the furniture away? And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to store it. So eventually I ended up renting it without furniture, and it worked out fine. I ended up getting about $100 less per month, but that was worth it because sometimes a couch costs $1,000. Okay, thanks. Great. Zoo, great to have you here. Thank you for following Landlordology. So Mengul said, do you Do you recommend painting and changing the carpet every time after a tenant leaves, or just at the every time after one tenant leaves, or just at the end of the lease? Oh gosh, are you talking about bedrooms, maybe like individual bedrooms when tenant leaves in a group house? I guess the answer to both of that is no. Carpets should last anywhere from 5 to 10 years, depending on how quality, high quality you got. And if if you buy the right carpet and you have it cleaned every single time they leave, then yes, it'll last longer and you don't need to replace it. Now, if you buy the cheapest carpet on the market, you might have to replace it every 2 or 3 years. But no, I think it's a waste of money. Just clean it. Now, if they stain it drastically or they have pets that urinate all over it, then yes, you might have to change it. Okay, Renee, let's see. Can you tell me, Renee is asking, can you tell me the partner sites that Cozy advertises on? And yes, it's doorsteps.com and realtor.com, which syndicates it out to the MLS, which most sites can't do that. And does it have a decent tenant pool? Well, Cozy isn't a listing site, it is a syndication site, and it provides that listing for you. So your reach is basically where you choose to list it at. We just give you the platform to collect applications and have that beautiful listing. Hope that made sense. Okay, Timothy, do you set a minimum credit score, FICO score, or Vanta score to approve tenant applications? Yes, mine's 700. Harlan is asking, will we have access to the webinar? Yes, you will get an email in about 24 hours with a link to the recording. Emmanuel is asking, should you compromise with tenants about the first and last month's security deposits in a low income area? Should you push for more deposit? Yes, so every state has its own laws about how much deposit you can collect, but usually it's between 1 and 2 months rent. If you have a very expensive property and you have low income tenants, I would collect more deposit, as high as you possibly can in the state. Now, if you have a average type of quality of housing and average type of tenant, or maybe slightly lower, maybe 1 to 1.5 type of 1.5 months rent is enough. So you just have to feel it out for yourself and think about, like, oh, if they were to destroy the stove, how much would that cost? If you're renting it for $400, you probably can't cover the stove for $400, so you might want to take 1.5 months rent. Okay, great questions, you guys. Wendy is asking, hey Wendy, she's struggling with a rental. She's done the things that I've suggested and reviewed comparables. She priced it right, but there's just so much inventory in her area. The last tenant paid $1,750 and she's had no inquiries at $1,600. She's got good picks and she doesn't want to give it away. Yeah, great question. She's asking my thoughts. So yes, that happens sometimes, especially, I don't know how long you've been advertising it for, but we're starting to get into summer, and in summer people go on vacation, they don't want to move. So there might be a tremendous amount of inventory, but not a lot of renters. And what I would do is maybe just try to hold out for, like, maybe lower it a little bit and do a 3-month lease and maybe get you to September, maybe late August or so, when people are starting to go back to school and they want to get settled before the school year starts. Try maybe $1,500 for 3 months and do just a trial lease with somebody, or do it month to month. And sometimes people will pay a premium for a month to month lease. Maybe you just say, I'm going to rent a month to month. I'm going to charge $1,800 and see if anybody bites. And then when it's appropriate for you to get back into a 1-year lease, you try that with either the current tenant, or you kick them out and try to lease it at a better time. That's the only suggestion I have. Okay, do you let's see, Bo, do you have any thoughts on having more than one login for Cozy, like one for an owner and one for a property manager? No, we don't have that. We're not doing that anytime soon. Eunice is asking, nope, yes, thank you. Okay, Tabitha's asking, how do you request serious offers without turning people off? Well, what I do is, when I have somebody inquiring, I just say, hey, listen, I'd love to show you the place, but I'd love to have a 5-minute conversation with you on the phone before that. And I just go through my screening requirements and I say, if you're still interested after we talk about all this stuff and they seem like a good fit, I'd say, hey, I can show you the place now. And so that's my way of kind of screening out, or pre-screening, before they actually get to see the place. And that way I'm only showing it to serious inquiries. Therefore, I only get so far, with people who aren't serious. All right, so guys, questions are still rolling in. Thank you. Okay, if you have any virtual staging services from Box Brownie, would you recommend? The ones on the slide, I'm sorry. Okay, so Manny, are you looking at adding maintenance and monthly maintenance tracking and monthly statements tracking in Cozy? Well, we already have maintenance, so it's already a thing. Your tenants can request maintenance issues and you can fix them in Cozy. And then monthly statements, everybody gets an email when payments go, so that kind of is the monthly statement, I suppose. Okay, with oh, I know what you mean, like a trailing 12-month reporting, tax paper, all that stuff. So we do have plans to do that, but I don't know when that's going to happen. Okay, John, with the spread of emotional support animals, how do you handle pet policy? I just decide if I'm going to allow pets or not. Now, emotional support animals and service animals, that is a whole nother webinar. So I'm not going to get into it too deep, but you cannot deny service animals, certified service animals, because they're not pets. And then emotional support animals do have some rights, but not as many rights as service animals. And then therapy animals, which are like dogs that go to hospitals to make people feel better, those are not protected at all. So there's a couple really good resources out there. Just find a really reputable website that blogs about it. And even Landlordology has a couple articles. So I can't dive too deep into it now. Do you require your tenants to obtain renter's insurance? Asks Pete. Yes, absolutely. So my homeowner's insurance does not cover their stuff, and I will get myself into a tricky situation if I don't require a renter's insurance. So I force them to do it. If they want to rent from me, they have to have it. And most high quality tenants want to get it anyway. So in Cozy, you can actually require this, and then they can buy renter's insurance with just a few clicks and make it super easy and simple. So that's what I do. It's also pretty affordable that way for them too, and it just makes it easy. All right, Bill is asking, what are the best paint color choices for painting rooms and appliances? Well, I think appliances, you can never go wrong with stainless steel. White typically looks cheap and will command less rent. Stainless steel is a keyword and people will search for that. As far as rooms, I usually like kind of a gray beige. Benjamin Moore has a color called Manchester Tan, which is pretty awesome. Faro and Ball has a color called Amorite, or a Elephant's Breath is another color from Faro and Ball, and you can get those matched at Sherwin-Williams. Those are colors that I love that look great in pictures and generally are accepted by everybody. Okay, do hardwood floors get more rent than carpeted apartments? It depends. I mean, if they're beautiful hardwood floors, yes, but it just depends on what people want. So everybody's a little bit different. I know my wife prefers carpet everywhere. I like hardwood floors. So we each pay something different. Can Cozy recommend an interior designer for color coordination? No, we don't know any interior designers, but maybe there's some on this webinar. But what I would do, actually, what I like to do is I like to go to Faro and Ball. It's a paint company out of England, and order like a template sample thing that they have, and they give you like this accordion book, and I just pick a color scheme. They only have maybe 90 colors, that's it. And then you just pick a color scheme and it's like all the darks and lights that you need, and just stay within that family. All right, great. I think that's it. Let's see, one more. Wendy is an unfurnished, sorry, Wendy. Nope, okay. All right, I think that's it. I'm sorry, some of the questions came in later as follow-ups, but okay. All right, Marjorie is asking, what are some of your pre-screening questions? I just ask them like, hey, I want to make sure you're comfortable with the move-in date. I want to make sure that you don't smoke. I want to tell you that here's the credit requirements and here's the background check information. Like, I don't accept anybody with an eviction. I don't accept anybody who's had a violent criminal history, that type of stuff. And so I just make sure that they're okay with my screening requirements. And I ask things like pets and how many roommates are going to be there, and just try to get a general feel for why they're moving and what they're doing. So that's it. I do ask the same questions to everybody, and then at the end of it, I see if they want to come see the showing, and if they don't think it's a good fit, they won't. So that's it. All right, that's all the questions today, guys. Thank you so much. I'm glad I stuck around. Thanks for sticking around with me. I hope you learned something, and And until next time, we really appreciate you and thank you for your love and interest in landlording. All right, Jordan, let's take it away.
Yeah, awesome, y'all. Well, thanks again, as Lucas said, for joining. We had a great time hanging out with y'all and doing some extended Q&A. So many awesome questions. If you do have any questions that come up later on, feel free to reach out to us at support@cozy.co 7 days a week. We're always happy to help. So listing related, cozy related, send it our way. We want to lend a hand.